Welcome to our preliminary cone winder video. My name is Bob Schroyer and I'm a partner at Nancy's Knit Knacks. We have been working on developing a cone winder for the past year or so. During that time we have investigated a wide variety of solutions that would allow us to introduce a cone winder to the market. The cone winder market is very limited. It consists of large and expensive industrial winders that are inappropriate for most users. There are two manufacturers that make small and affordable cone winders, one of which is motorized, but these tend to not be truly commercial grade. The Silver Needles unit does indeed wind a cone of yarn, but it has a somewhat finicky chain drive system which causes it to require periodic tweaking and repair. None of these systems allow the user to use industry standard paper cones, however. So we took a look at what was needed and it came down to the following. A commercial grade winder that could be used manually or motorized. The ability for the winder to use industry standard cones. A quick and easy load and unload method for the cones. A method to measure the yarn being wound, and the ability for the metering device to turn the winder off automatically. A system to hold large cones to feed yarn onto the cones mounted on the winder. We spent a lot of time and money trying to develop a winder that could make cones in normal cone shapes. Although we were headed down the final path to developing such a machine, we concluded that there were still issues with our proposed design which would cause issues for both the users and for ourselves. So we relooked at what we already had for a winding platform and discovered that with a few tweaks we could successfully meet all 5 of the requirements that I have outlined. The proposed solution consists of using our existing ball winder in power base. We discovered that we can modify our small diameter spindle so that the paper cone can fit over the spindle and be held in place with some additional hardware that we can easily add. This allows the user to securely wind yarn onto a cone. This winding action forms a ball on the cone surface, but do not allow that to alarm you. The cone can hold a large amount of yarn even if it's in a ball shape. But here is the important thing to consider about why a ball is better than a traditional cone. First of all, a ball can be removed from the cone if desired. A normally wound cone full of yarn cannot be removed from the cone unless you unwind every single inch of it. A ball can be pulled off and easily used as a center pull ball or pulled from the outside, or it can be left on the cone. But most importantly, when you do want to unwind the yarn from the cone, as in feeding a knitting machine or any other device, including looms, by using one of our many cone holder devices, you can remove the yarn horizontally from the cone, which does not add or subtract twist to the yarn as it is being unwound. Removing yarn vertically from a cone and then turning it at a 90-degree angle may add or subtract twist to the yarn, which is very undesirable. We have always known this and have always designed holders for cones that would allow the user to unwind yarn from the cone horizontally, which does not add or subtract twist. Why is this an important issue for our new cone winder? Because by winding cones with our winder and then mounting them on one of our cone holders to feed yarn to your device, you can avoid this twist issue altogether. Users think they need to mount a cone vertically because that has always been the only way to do it. They may have also thought that by feeding the yarn vertically up over a table's edge, that would increase the tension, which it did. But by using our cone holders, we have built-in tensioning systems that do this in a more controlled manner without adding twist. So now there is no reason to have to feed cones vertically, and there is no need to have to use traditionally wound cones. You can now wind cones on our ball winder system with the use of our new cone winder adapter and actually have better looking results because you will no longer be accidentally retwisting your yarn. So why is all this such a great idea? Because we have tons of experience making ball winding systems with thousands of manual crank units and hundreds of motorized systems in the field. Plus we can add an intelligent electronic yarn metering system which will stop the winder when you have made a cone of X quantity of yards or meters. No one else in the market can do this. Best of all, these products are available today. The final custom parts that are needed for the cone winder adapter will be developed over the next month or so. Be sure to watch our video which illustrates how the unit actually works and works in conjunction with the Yarn Pet and Yarn Pet Duo. This will show you exactly how the system would work, and we'll have more information, more pictures, more videos as time goes on. Thank you.
Here you can see our first image of the cone winder adapter. Now this is a prototype adapter that we're using on top of the heavy duty ball winder and power base Spindle. And you'll notice that the cone is right on top of the spindle, and I'll show you that in more detail in a moment. You'll notice that the ball is structured right on the cone, although it's a ball shape. And it doesn't take full advantage of the cone height, as you can see, but as that ball grows in diameter, it will also grow in height. It'll never practically fill the entire cone. You'll also notice here that we have the yarn pet and yarn pet duo. We're using the yarn pet to hold a cone, a traditional cone, and we're feeding yarn to the ball winder from that cone. You notice that we machined in a metal insert into the top of the spindle. That's a threaded insert, and what will go in there will be a knob of some size. This may not be the final knob, but it will actually go in there, and that'll secure down whatever we're going to use to hold the top of the cone in place. That'll be used for that purpose. We'll bundle a kit consisting of the ball winder, power base, and a yarn pet, to hold your cones with a cone accessory kit, and of course the necessary cone adapter, which will be that small diameter spindle with modifications, so that you can use that to do all your cones as well as wind your balls. And that really was always the objective here, was to be able to use what we've already created, which is that power base and ball winder. They are so sturdy and commercial grade. They've been time tested in the field. It would have been a shame not to be able to use them. Since we're simply winding yarn again, why not use the tools we've already developed and adapt them to the cone world? And of course, it's not a traditional cone, but if you listen to our podcast on the subject, where we point out that balls in many cases wound in this method are actually better than cones, we think. But especially if you remove the yarn horizontally from a cone, regardless of what kind of cone you have, you're going to be much better off, because you're not going to add or subtract twists to the yarn. When you take it overhead and you pull the yarn off vertically off a cone, you're doing all kinds of things to that yarn, things that you probably shouldn't be doing. So we think pulling it off horizontally and then taking it wherever you want to take it is fine. But to pull it off first and then taking it in a different direction at a 90-degree angle or what have you, does add or subtract twists when you do it that way. So we really encourage you not to use cones in that manner. And here you can see where we mounted that cone that we've wound on the ball winder, and we've put it onto the yarn pet duo. And we're now winding a ball over on the ball winder on the small diameter spindle. So it's a pretty versatile machine when you think about it. We're able to wind balls, we're able to wind cones without changing out the spindle. That's pretty good, I think. You'll notice too that the height of the ball here is only about 4.5 to 5 inches. So the yarn is traversing up and down, just like it would on a regular cone. You can see it going up and down as it's being pulled off. But it's not going 7 inches. And that actually results in a smoother action. When you're going a full 7 inches, that yarn is moving laterally quite a bit. And that's when you're pulling it off horizontally. When you're pulling it off vertically, it's a slightly different action, of course, but it would be interesting to do some studies, which we've not completed, that would show where the least amount of resistance and tension that is exerted on the yarn is actually experienced, whether it's taken off horizontally or taking it off vertically. Because I've not gotten into the issue of tension on the yarn. I've gotten into the issue of twist. But tension's also a fairly critical item here in terms of you know, stretching or whatever to your yarn. Now I've increased the speed. You can see that cone really spinning now. Of course, the ball winder is really cranking as well. And now we're going to make another ball. You know, we're making a ball from the cone. So that's how the cone holder works. Pretty good. I can increase the tension by turning this part here, or I can decrease the tension if necessary. And I've also got the tension adjustment up on the ball winder. So as you can see, the cone winder is pulling yarn from that cone. I can speed that up. And it's making a cone. Different kind of cone. It's yarn on a traditional cone. You can see our cone is getting pretty large there, and the other cone's, you know, decreasing, of course. And so the little, you know, yarn pit is doing a good job of keeping guidance coming off that cone. You got to provide a horizontal guide when you're pulling yarn off horizontally. When you do it overhead, of course, you're pulling it overhead, it's adding twists, and then it's going through a guide, and it makes a 90-degree turn to go to your device, whatever that may be. So we'll just continue to remove that yarn from the cone, making our own cone, and then we'll examine the cone for integrity, see how much yarn we actually got on there. I may have to move out my post. As you can see, I've got the wire form fairly close there. I may have to turn that out slightly, but that's the whole purpose of having the adjustable post. That ball right now measures about 4 5/8, 4 3/4 high by about 6 1/2 in diameter. It's not a very tight ball. I didn't have the yarn guide, this item here, I didn't have it really set to make a tight ball, but that could be tighter and be more compressed. You'd get more yarn on there. We're pretty much near the end of travel here because of the height, but you can see how much yarn we got on that ball. It's quite a bit of yarn. I'll have to weigh it. I didn't measure it. I could have measured it as I was bringing it off the cone, but you know, typically when you're winding a cone, you're not taking all the yarn off the cone you've got. You're making smaller cones, or you're coming from some other source. So it would be not typical to wind the same amount of yarn that you had on a large cone on one of these cones. What you see for the cone holders here is the yarn pet with the cone accessory kit, and there will be an adapter that will fit into the top of that cone so that it will be cone shaped itself, and that will hold the cone snugly. Right now I'm using a washer that comes with that kit, but quite frankly we need to add a custom made component there that will be a tapered cone shaped plug, and that'll fit into that cone. It'll fit into just about any cone size except the very very small ones, which quite frankly all they ever allow to pass through is the diameter of the steel rod. So that's not an issue on that size. And next to it you see the Yarn Pet Duo. The Yarn Pet Duo can actually feed two strands of yarn simultaneously through to the ball winder, just by putting 2 cones on there. We're also going to have a trio, Yarn Pet Trio, which will have a third cone rack on it, so to speak. It'll be bigger than what you see there, of course, and but it'll have a position for a third cone. So you could actually have 3 cones feeding the ball winder. We can also make the yarn guide on the top of that post. We can make that smaller diameter, or larger diameter I should say. Right now that's a 1/4 inch. diameter on that wire form. We have made them in the past 1/2 inch, 5/8, even 1 inch. For some people that wanted to put very large diameter yarn or other items through to the ball winder. Now keep in mind, I'm going to take this cone off. This is a prototype connection and mounting system. I'll pull the cone off. I've already broken the yarn there, intentionally. And you can see how that that cone is on, or that yarn is on the cone. It's not slipping around. You know, it's securely on that cone. You can see how it's formed on there. If you wanted to stand that up, you could do so. If your application called for that to sit on the floor, for example, and you insisted on pulling it, you know, vertically, you can do that. You're pulling from the outside of the ball, just like you'd be pulling from the outside of a cone. It's a bigger diameter, but it's going to come off just as easy. And we know this because that's what we designed the yarn pit for. You know, the yarn pit holds balls or cones of yarn and serves as a knitter because the yarn goes through the horizontal guide. So you could mount this system. Whoops, I got to move over here. You could mount this system on there. I'd have to adjust the disc, the mounting disc, so that that would be supported. You could mount that on there, or the pet. And the yarn pet duo, it's 1 inch wider here, and it's heavier wood. So now you probably can't get two of these particular balls on here at the same time because they're rather large. Typically we have space for 5-inch balls, and this ball measures over 6 inches, so it obviously couldn't be mounted next to another one of the same type. You could put this cone, however, on that other post. So you can see how that would work. You know, this would have an adjustment here, or a capturing device, and that would be supported on that wood disc, and then you could pull the yarn off horizontally. So I just want to show you that that yarn, it's really on there. It's not coming off. It's not on there like a cone, it's on there like a ball, but it's on a cone. And it can be removed very easily. Now I can also slide this ball off of this cone, and now I have a big ball. So I've got the best of both worlds. I can make a ball, I can use it on a cone, but best of all, we can use our commercial grade motorized ball winder to do that job. And you'll notice up here now that you can see the shape of the spindle. I'll zoom in on that. That's the small diameter spindle. Now it's going to be modified. We won't have that rubber gasket there that you see. Rather, we will have a structure that's machined out of this composite material. So then when you put the cone over it, it'll be contained and restricted from moving laterally, because that structure will be cut right into that material. So this material will be higher as a result. That also means that you can use that same spindle to wind regular balls. It's a regular spindle. It's a small diameter spindle, gives you a smaller center hole, but many people use it to wind all their balls.